right, we'll go ahead and reconvene the Friday, August 7th meeting of the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners in Fallon, Nevada. Before I turn it over to staff for 7B, Director Wasley, could you make a quick introduction for us?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Drew. I was remiss in not mentioning this a little bit earlier, but there are a couple of staff people here that are relatively new to the department that you'll be seeing around in the future. One is Jordan Neubauer, up next to Suzanne. Jordan's going to be providing assistance with the regulation process from the director's office. And then on the camera, Alex Portillo, and Alex is in the Conservation Education Division. He's a huge help. He took, for those of you that knew Steve Kemp, he took Steve's position when Steve went up to Elko. So Alex was a big help with WAFWA as well, so you'll be seeing those guys around at future meetings. And I apologize to both of you for not introducing you earlier. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you and welcome aboard. With that, we'll move to item 7B, Industrial Artificial Pond Permit and Mining Assessment Fee Regulation. Habitat Division Administrator Alan Janae and Habitat Staff Specialist Matt Maples. An overview of the existing regulation governing the permit process and assessment fee program will be presented to provide a baseline understanding before future regulation modifications are sought. Mr. Janae and Mr. Maples.
Thank you, Chairman Drew and members of the Commission. I got to applaud your meeting management skills at taking a break before this very exciting topic. We're going to take you through this. It is going to be regulation related, so we're just trying to get you familiar with this. We're going to be coming back in the future meetings with some modifications to these regulations. So just kind of wanted to give you an overview of what's existing and get you familiar with this. It's a role that not many people are familiar with and not that much up to speed as far as what we do. So with that, we'll kind of walk you through this. Matt's got a PowerPoint presentation here, and we've got the material in your hands that have the specific regulations, both the NRS and the related NACs for the program. And we supplied that knowing that you may not get everything out of this PowerPoint presentation, but it'll give you some reference material for future. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Matt.
Thank you. As Alan said, this is the second presentation that we made recently regarding the mining program, and this will dive into the really fun stuff of the NRS and NAC statutes and regs that the Industrial Artificial Pond Permitting Program is authorized by. So at the back of the PowerPoint for your reference is a printout of the NRS and the NAC for future reference. The NRS 502.390 established in 1989 with some major revisions through 1991, and then the Nevada Administrative Code NAC 502.460 to 495. And the last time these regs were substantially modified was in 1991, some of them in 1993. However, no major modifications have been made since that time. NRS 502, there's a permit required to develop or maintain certain bodies of water, fees and assessments and penalties. This kind of covers the overarching authority of the program. Section 1 covers who must obtain a permit, and an NRS that specifically states any artificially created body of water that contains chemicals or substances in quantities which may cause the death of wildlife, or an operator of a mining operation which develops or maintains an artificial body of water containing chemicals directly associated with the processing of ore. That basically lays out who and the facilities that do require the IAP permit. Based on sections 2 and 3, department has 30 days to issue or deny a permit. If the department denies a permit, appeals may be made to the Wildlife Commission. Permits can be made valid for up to 5 years at $125 per year or $68 for 6 months or less, and permit remains in effect for 30 days after a transfer or sale of the operation for which the permit is held. Section 4 requires an assessment fee, and this assessment fee is largely, or actually primarily now, the revenue structure that funds the IAP program, our field biologists, the staff time to manage the program, etc. All permit holders, according to NRS, must pay an assessment to NDOW, and the assessment is determined by regulations adopted by the Wildlife Commission. In NRS, it states the assessment must be no more than $100,000 per year for each permit.
10,000.
What did I say? 10,000. I'm sorry, not 100,000.
Just scared a bunch of people.
Yeah, we'll not be asking for $100,000 in any future request. Section 5 covers the penalties, and failure to obtain a permit, failure to pay an assessment, or failure to comply with the permit provisions results in a misdemeanor for the first offense and a gross misdemeanor for the second offense. Bring me a new slide, please. World Wildlife Commission adopted NAC regulations shortly after NRS was passed in 89 and 1991, and 502, 460 to 495, bodies of water lethal to wildlife. Multiple definitions are included in the NAC that define artificial or man-made body of water, chemicals or substances, normal use, and then NAC that requires certain forms and fees as set in our NRS that the department is responsible for developing, maintaining, and issuing. NAC 502-480 requires NDOW to design a permit that includes measures to protect wildlife and operating standards to be implemented by the permittee. Permittees must comply with permit conditions, which include but are not limited to fencing requirements, covering requirements, and operating standards such as chemical neutralization to the point that any industrial pond containing chemicals or substances will not cause the death of any wildlife. Further, permittees are required to report wildlife mortalities that occur at permitted facilities based on the requirements stated in the permit, and permittees must provide department employees reasonable access in order to inspect facilities to ensure compliance with the permit terms and conditions. The assessment reg requires permittees to pay an annual assessment based on the tons of material processed through a mill or a heap leach pad during the previous fiscal year, and the amount of the assessment is determined as included in that table. Assessment fees range from $50 up to $10,000. Existing NAC regulations only require assessment fees from mines that process new ore with a heap leach or mill technology. Currently, within the permit holders, only 45% of permittees pay an annual assessment to the department, and a lack of detailed definitions allow some operations that process ore not to pay the assessment. Many of these projects, they're not currently paying an assessment fee, require substantial time and investment from biologists and staff. This program was subsidized by sportsman dollars for many years. It was matched with PR funding. However, that subsidy was eliminated several years ago and has subsequently resulted in negative cash flow for the mining program. The revenue generated from the annual assessments and the permit costs results in revenue of approximately $250,000 each year. Staff time to run the program is approximately $500,000 per year, and in the past we worked with the mining industry to put forth environmental projects and research surrounding the mining industry to the tune of $250,000 per year. That has been postponed or eliminated in the present day due to negative cash flow and lack of funding. Our account balance is quickly depleting in the mining assessment fee fund, and we'll be coming to you with future regulations. The goal of those future regulations will be to create a sustainable system that covers the cost of the program, and to clarify and add certain regulations to increase the consistency and ensure a clear permitting process and requirements for the industry and for permittees. The regulation needs will require modification of NAC for the assessment fee structure to provide a structure that's more inclusive of all permittees, and new or modified NAC regulations to provide definitions that support those changes to the assessment structure. With that, I'll judge good success that everyone's still awake, and I'll take any questions.
Questions for Mr. Maples or Mr. Janay? Commissioner Johnston.
I guess I have one question. I guess we're going to be going through this process. I take it the department's reaching out to the stakeholders, i.e. the mining folks, to provide their input as we move this forward.
Absolutely. We're finishing up what our proposed regs are going to look like right now, and then we'll be taking that to the mining industry and other permittees that could be affected by the regulation change to include Nevada Mining Association and other industry groups.
They are aware that some of them have actually asked for this modernization, so they're aware and have been involved with preliminary discussions.
Great. Just to follow up on that, thoughts on timeline as to when it might come back to us, what you're thinking in terms of processing an initial draft, getting the stakeholder input, and then coming back?
Yes, Chairman. We are trying to reach out, have these stakeholder meetings in the next few months, and we'll probably be coming back. It'll probably be the new year by the time we get back with a proposed reg change for you guys to review.
Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what we have in our packet here is the NRS, and we're talking about modifying NAC. There's amounts that are defined in NRS. How restrictive are those going to be?
They are restrictive enough that we're not going to mess with the cap on that, knowing that we can't go above that $10,000. So the assessment structure that we'll come back to you with for the other industries that aren't covered underneath the current reg will work within that limit.
Okay, so we're not worried about the ones that are currently paying and the cost to the program at this time. Their initial look here is at the ones that the 55% that aren't.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that and have conversation with the stakeholders relative to the current structure and see if there's some flexibility within that. The $50 minimum is actually, you look at that and by today's standards, that's pretty insignificant. So we will have that conversation as far as the existing fee structure, but we're not going to go above the $10,000 cap. We understand that we cannot get there without going through NRS, so we'll work within that.
And my question was just relevant to, does it need to go above that to make it sustainable in the future? And that was, is this something that could turn into a legislative issue at some point?
The initial assessment is that we can get to where we want to be, given the ideas that we have right now. Like we say, it's only been initial discussions with the industry, so as we have those, we'll evaluate.
I'd like to add that we're framing this as a cost recovery, and so we're looking at the average minimum cost that NDOW has to fund in order to issue permits and inspect and ensure compliance with the permits on an annual basis. And we'll be basing the new assessment fees, or the proposed assessment fees, on that minimum cost. So really, it's going to be structured and framed as a cost recovery analysis.
If I might add, industry appreciates that standpoint as far as cost recovery. They understand and appreciate that from a business model, and one of their concerns has been similar to our concerns, where historically we were subsidizing these programs with sportsman's dollars, and when we shifted to a cost recovery, they understood and appreciated it, but when this was originally put in statute, there weren't some of the operations that now exist on the landscape. And so now certain industries are subsidizing other industries, and so they want to see it modernized and a more equitable approach. And so it isn't necessarily that we need to raise the cap, but we need to broaden the pool of those contributing to it.
Just to follow up on that, Director Wasley, could you give me an example of an operation that maybe currently isn't paying and what the loophole is?
For example, some of the lithium, some of the saline concentration ponds, those ponds are still required to be permitted, but the table that you saw that assesses that fee is based on a tonnage of ore processed. So they don't process any ore. However, there are impacts to wildlife. And so those who are processing ore are subsidizing the avian protection plan and the pond permitting process for somebody who's concentrating sailing through a series of ponds and not paying anything.
Additional questions? Commissioner McNutt?
So with that in mind, it sounds like the NRS, I haven't read it through here today, it doesn't reference ore, it just references impacts to wildlife. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Additional questions or comment? All right, seeing none, thank you, gentlemen. We'll close agenda item number 7. We're still on informational reports and move to agenda item 7C, Nevada Drought Update, Fisheries Division Administrator Johnny Schoberg, Western Region Biologist 4 Ken Tisdale, and Western Region Biologist 3 Travis Hawks. Department staff will provide an update on the ongoing drought conditions affecting fisheries in northern Nevada with a presentation on management strategies for the Truckee River through extended drought conditions. Updates on drought-impacted fisheries in other areas of Nevada may be included in this presentation. Ms. Tisdale and Mr. Hawks, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Drew. Thank you for the board. We're just going to give you a quick little update on the ongoing drought conditions that we're all facing and how it's affecting some of our fisheries across the western region. Travis is going to go over the Truckee River, which is one of our more high-profile waters, and it's one of the most impacted right now. And then I'll follow up with a little update on some of the other western region waters.
All right, for the record, Travis Hawks, Nevada Department of Wildlife, Western Region Fisheries Biologist. So I'm just going to give a quick update on the status of the Truckee River currently and what our management actions are that we're going through right now. So just a quick history of the fishery from 1980 to 2014. It averaged 10.4 days per angler on the river, 20.4 fish per angler over the course of a year, 2.0 fish per day, and a little over 10,000 anglers per year. This data comes from our mail-in angler questionnaire, which is a questionnaire sent out to 10% of the license holders in the state of Nevada, and then we expand the data from there. Our most recent survey on the river was in 2013, and we were averaging about 615 fish per mile from the Woodeye Power Dam down to the Derby Dam. And this is salmonids, trout species, just game fish. And that composition was about 27% browns, 64% rainbow trout, 9% whitefish. And an important thing to note was on the rainbow trout, 70% of those fish were determined to be wild fish that we don't stock. They self-sustain in the river. And then just looking at the age structure of both the browns and the rainbows, it's what you'd expect to see in a healthy reproducing wild population. In the browns, you can see 6 age classes there. The spikes on the graph is generally an age class. So. And then this is just the brown and rainbow populations from 91 to 2011. And you can see it starts to increase rapidly in about 2005 and all the way to 2011. That coincides with good flow in the river, continuous flow above 250 CFS, which is what's been determined necessary throughout the year to maintain the fishery. So this is the flow rates on the Truckee from 92 to 2015 at 2 different USGS gauge sites. One of them is at Reno, right in downtown, and the other's at Vista. They mirror each other as you'd expect. In 92 and 94, you can see extremely low flows. We had documented die-off in the fishery there, and that occurred in town in what we call the urban fishery, and then also in the lower river down by Mustang. And then again in 2004, we had a die-off, and that was mainly restricted to the lower river that year. And then after that, you see we have pretty regular flows above that 250 CFS mark until 2014, where we've dipped below again. Just a couple important things that happened in the river, the die-offs that I just discussed, and then in 97 we had the flood, which flushed the system, and it actually exposed the gravels that are needed by salmonids for spawning and reproducing. It made it a more productive system. That's another reason we saw that big increase in the fish populations post-2005. These are just some pictures of fish caught in the last few years. Older age class fish, good size, healthy. The white fish in the bottom right corner is it kind of signifies a healthy system. They're kind of the canary of a river system. If they're healthy and they're big, it means things are looking good. So, and this is currently, this picture's taken in downtown. On July 28th, we had 5.8 cubic feet per second in Mobile. 21-year average is almost 500 cubic feet per second. Reno was 35 with an average of 318, and Vista was 59 with an average of 401. And then on July 31st, we actually hit 0 CFS at Mobile and downstream of Glendale diversion in Sparks. So just how we got here, 4 straight years of below average snowpack in the Sierra, in the Truckee Basin, and then the last 2 years especially below 50% of average. That red line on the graph is that 250 CFS mark that we hope to stay above, and as you can see, beginning in June we dipped below, and other than a couple big thunderstorms, we haven't gone back above that for any duration of time. So what's happening with the fishery? In the upper river, which is California to Mobile, historically the fish persists in this reach of the river. The water stays cooler, it's upstream of any major outtakes, there's less urban impact. And then the Mobile Reno, part of the urban section, there's the least amount of sustained flow in the river due to the municipal outtake, and it's upstream of some of the creeks that come in, Hunter Creek. And then potential for complete loss of game fish through this section, and from what I've observed and others have reported, we're pretty much losing this whole section of the river. We've seen some dead fish. We've been watching the fish at Hunter Creek where they're congregated, and the numbers get smaller and smaller every day. And then the lower river, which is down Mustang through the canyon, we've seen it gets lost every time we have a drought situation like this. The flow is maintained because we have the treatment plant discharge, but the water temperatures tend to get too warm for the game fish in that section of the river. Just a quick map that shows you where the municipal outtake is, shows you where the Mobile gauge is at, the Vista gauge, the Reno gauge, and basically that entire section in the middle is most likely going to be lost outside of a few reaches this year. Biological effects of the drought is just the lower flow rates combined with the warm temps equal less oxygen, and that kills the fish. That's the big one. There's a big increase in predation from the birds and mammals. The cormorants are stacked up right now eating the fish that are left. The fish predate upon themselves. You got all the big fish and all the little fish in the same pools, so you're losing those younger age classes that are key to repopulating the river after the drought, and then limited spawning success for all species. So what are our actions? We started a meeting in April when we knew this was going to be a problem, and we met with members of some downtown business members, some guides, and talked about what our options are. A big one that kept coming up and people have talked to me about is why aren't we salvaging these stranded fish? The biggest reason is there's a possibility that we translocate the New Zealand mud snail, which basically exists in those problem areas from Mayberry to Mustang is their distribution in the river, and it's been shown that they can survive in the intestinal tract of fish. So if we move those fish somewhere else and they transport the mud snails, we've got a bigger problem on our hands. Limited resources, we really don't have the equipment personnel to do this. There's really no biological justification for it. We manage the fishery in the river as a population and not these individual fish. It stinks to see these fish struggling and dying, but in the long term the population will recover, and there's no reason to move those fish. And we don't just want to move the problem. All the waters in the area are struggling right now. If we move fish from one water to another, we're just compounding the problem. So, people have suggested to close the river to all angling. We don't want to do that. It's a resource to the public. There's really no biological reason to close the river. We're going to lose the fish one way or the other. By allowing people to continue to fish and possibly pull some of these stressed fish out, we may be helping some of the other fish by leaving some resources in there for them. It's basically culling some of the fish in the river. Why don't we open the river and just let people go in there and harvest everything? We can clean out some stretches of the river that we don't necessarily want cleaned out. The upper river would be one section where people may focus heavily, and that section will actually be okay. People will target some of the species in the fall that will be spawning and are a lot easier to catch. When we open it up and just allow people to go in and pull fish out, it is not a good public image, especially with some of the special interest groups that don't want to see that happen. The cumulative effects of just having people up and down the river this time of the year, it will have negative impacts on the fishery. In the end, though, it would have been more beneficial biologically than closing the river. So what we did, we worked with our Conservation Education Division, our Law Enforcement Division, and we came up with a public outreach campaign to kind of put the ownership on the public and, get them to understand, we don't want people fishing in the afternoons when it's hot. If the water temperature is above 68 degrees, it's hard on the fish. Try to stay off the river. But at the same time, fish the mornings, and if you want to keep some fish, absolutely go for it. We had several articles in the newspaper, on the website. We had signage at all major access fishing points on the river. We included local businesses. The Reno Fly Shop was one. Some of the other guides, they got the word out. So that's just the Rest Your River campaign. Those were the signs that we hung everywhere we could think of. We got really good feedback on it. It helped people to understand. I personally spoke to a lot of people out on the river that were aware of it, and we're spreading the word, so we're happy to see that. So just going forward, the good news is the habitat quality in the river has improved substantially post-97 flood, and then there's some projects on the lower river. The Nature Conservancy has been restoring the river down there for almost a decade now, and it looks great. Spawning habitat's vastly improved, and we have an established wild source. Even if we lose the middle river, we've got fish in the tributaries, we've got fish in the upper river. It's a productive system. It'll bounce back on its own. That's just an example of that. Was in Dog Valley Creek on July 9th. I did some surveys just to see what we had in there, and in one transect I got, endemic sucker species as well as the brown trout, the rainbow trout, game fish species. And then so we'll continue our public outreach, and then want to do some fall surveys just to understand, if we did lose the entire lower river, if we lost everything in the middle river, and then just looking at our future stocking, if it needs to be adjusted to account for the loss this year. And just one last slide of basically showing that the wild fishery will recover. Those two lines, the purple and the green, are our stocking rates, and seeing that when we stopped stocking browns in 2005, the population actually increased, and I've had a lot of people asking me what our stocking is going to be for browns, and I have to tell them that, it's shown that by stopping the stocking, we actually increase our population, so that's all for me.
Okay, some other western region waters. Lahontan, just down the road, all of our reservoirs are just really low. Lahontan's this morning was at 50 acre feet. Max capacity is 319,000, so there's just a minimum pool there right now. They cut off the irrigation flows at about 10,000 acre feet, and it's slowly coming down. What we're hoping is that we can just kind of squeak through this summer. We have not experienced any fish kills at Lahontan. We do have, some game fish and still in there. We've been at rye patching Lahontan. We've been working with the commercial harvester. He's been helping us by going out there and using his commercial equipment to collect carp and remove them from the water to try and reduce the biomass of fish in these low reservoirs, and hopefully allow the fish that remain in there to survive through the summer. So we're doing what we can to try and get those fish through the summer, and we have a brood stock in there. You see that huge wiper there on the bottom left corner that came out of Lahontan. That's one of the guys who works for the commercial harvester. So those fish are in there, catfish and walleye, and We just need a good winter to, kind of repopulate that lake and those reservoirs. As Travis was mentioning, you get to a minimum pool situation like that, and those big fish pick off all the little fish. So, we lose our young age class fish, but as long as we have brood stock, we have something to build off of. Topaz Lake, same sort of situation, just dismally low. People are still fishing Topaz. All of the boat launches are pretty much out of the water, but most of these desert reservoirs, people are launching from the beaches, so they're still getting out there and they're still fishing it. Rye Patch, same sort of situation, just really low. They actually haven't irrigated below Rye Patch in the last couple of years, so same situation as Lahontan. There's fish in there, and we expect Rye Patch to pull through. It's looking pretty good as far as maintaining that fishery. The other waters that everybody asks about are the Pine Forest Complex, Onion, and Knot, Blue Lakes. Onion actually has been able, this summer has just been, a godsend. They didn't provide us a winter, but the nice cool summer temperatures that we've been having, the thunderstorms has allowed us to have these reservoirs and fisheries maintain a little bit longer than we expected. So there's actually still water in Onion Reservoir. We did stock it this spring, so people have been able to fish it all spring and summer. It is getting really low. It's looking like maybe in a few weeks, we might lose Onion. It'll be drained for irrigation down below. Knot Creek is still, it's really low, but we do have that 1,000-acre-foot minimum pool in Knot Creek, so temperatures are pretty warm. We haven't experienced any fish kills there. Knot Creek is kind of known for having fish kills, but we haven't experienced anything major, a few fish here and there. But you can see from that low right picture, it's really low. And this is just an interesting picture. This is Blue Lakes. A lot of people haven't been up there, but it's up above. It's in the pine forest above Onion, and you see the 2012 picture there is what it normally looks like. Right now, it is as low as anybody has ever seen it. It's about 25 feet below, where it normally is, and they went out there and took some depths, and there's still about 20 foot of depth in there. So, and the fishing has been great. So it's maintaining, but it's just shows you how tough things are out there. So, and I think that was it. If anybody has any questions.
Questions? It's not because no one's asleep. You guys did a great job. I'd just like to point out, I know it's been a tough summer for you guys and your staff. I mean, no one wants to live through this, and I appreciate all the outreach activities you guys have done. You've been great in the media and on social media, and so just wanted to thank you for that. I know it's not the easiest thing to deal with, but you're doing a really good job, so thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. With that, we'll close agenda item 7C, go to agenda item 7D, resource enhancement stamp and dream tag raffle tickets. Deputy Director Patrick Cates and Don Sefton with System Consultants. An overview of the RES and dream tag program, including recent changes in sale process, will be provided. A report on RES and dream tag sale trends since inception of the program will also be provided. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will give you a brief overview of the Dream Tag program and give you some information on some challenges that we've had with the program in the last year. And then I'll turn it over to Don, who will give you some stats on sales and trends since inception of the program. The Dream Tag program was created by the 2011 legislature with AB 322. It's not the first piece of legislation for this program, but it's the final piece of legislation that created it. It was sponsored by Senator Debbie Smith, and Diane Belding and Judy Karen were the primary proponents, and I know Judy's here today. It's been in existence for 4 years, and it's been a successful program. It's raised a lot of money for wildlife. The essence of the program is a raffle of big game tags, and the money raised from that raffle is to be used for, quote, the preservation, protection, management, or restoration of game and its habitat, and that's from NRS 502. Because it's a raffle, that creates one challenge, and that is Section 24 of the Nevada Constitution bans the state from operating a lottery, but it does allow the legislature to authorize private nonprofit charities to conduct raffles. So the law creates, it names the Community Foundation of Western Nevada to administer the program. The raffle tickets are $5 each. You can buy as many as you want for a chance to win a dream tag, and the raffle ticket funds go to the foundation. The legislation also created the Dream Tag Advisory Board, and the primary function of the advisory board is to advise the foundation and to grant raffle ticket funds to organizations for conservation. Systems consultants isn't named in the statute, but it's referred to, it's inferred. They are authorized to contract with the foundation to sell tickets and administer the raffle. It also authorizes the commission to allocate tags, and it names NDOW as being responsible for administration of the program. There is another fee besides the raffle tickets, and that is the resource enhancement stamp. That's a $10 fee. You purchase that once per year. Once you purchase that, you can then purchase raffle tickets. You cannot get raffle tickets unless you purchase the resource enhancement stamp. I would refer you to the nvdreamtag.org website. That is where they sell raffle tickets, and it's full of information on the program. It's got a wealth of information. It's a really nice site. Program implementation. As we rolled this program out, there's just a few things I want to lay out for you. Systems consultants created 3 sales portals for Dream Tag raffle tickets and resource enhancement stamps. One of those portals is the Foundation standalone Dream Tag website that I just named. NDOW's consumer website, the NWDS website, where you can buy licenses, and Nevada's big game application website. NDOW, for our role, we have supported the program in a variety of ways. We've been cooperating with the Foundation, the Advisory Board, and SCI since inception on program development and marketing campaigns. SCI made at our direction changes to the consumer site and application hunt system. We developed regulations. Our Conservation Education Division has provided pro bono advertising in the form of press releases, email blasts, NDOW publications, NDOW's website, social media, and a podcast for the first time this year. We also paid for advertising in the form of billboards, posters, a television campaign, print media, and internet advertising. The resource enhancement stamp, those funds come to the department, and we have been using those funds to pay for staff time spent on Dream Tag, as well as the paid advertising. NDOW and Nevada's Wildlife have benefited greatly from the Dream Tag grants. They've awarded approximately $600,000 in grants since inception. Those grants have been used to pay for wildfire restoration, seeds, riparian habitat improvements, pinyon juniper removal, invasive weed treatments, and water developments. By and far, the largest beneficiary of those grants has been the Department of Wildlife, but other grantees include the Fraternity of Desert Bighorn, Nevada Bighorns Unlimited, Nevada Lands Conservancy, Friends of Nevada Wilderness, Carson High School, Paradise-Sonoma Conservation District, and the Mason Valley Conservation District. And
everything was going along pretty well with the program the first 3 years, and then we encountered some challenges. One of the challenges that came up concerned the state treasurer. The state treasurer had concerns about the state versus vendor bank accounts. And this is not a new issue, and this is a global issue, and it was not specific to dream tags, but it had consequences for dream tags. It actually is a global issue for all the revenue collected through the application hunt system and the consumer website. Prior to 2014, all funds collected through those two systems were deposited in a private SCI bank account. That included the public monies of all the sportsman fees, boating fees, etc. that the department charges the public. It also included the Dream Tag raffle ticket sales that had been programmed into those systems. SCI regularly transferred the public monies to end out to the state account on a regular basis and transferred the raffle tickets to the foundation. And the process generally worked well for all of us. It was a few years prior when this issue came up, and my staff brought it to my attention as they were working with the treasurer's office. When the treasurers realized this is how this was set up, they approached us, and they have authority on IRS 356 concerning deposit of public monies. They told us that they had not authorized an outside account to be used for those public monies, and that they do not, in any circumstances, authorize private vendor bank accounts to handle public monies. But they agreed that we could wait to change that because that was a contractual arrangement that we had with SCI. It was the way the system was programmed. It's the way Don had priced his products, and we've been doing that for years. So they agreed that we could wait until we did an RFP, and state purchasing made us go through an RFP process in 2013. Sorry, I lost my place in my notes here. Okay. So we issued the RFP in 2013. In that RFP, we required bidders to deposit to a state bank account. SCI was awarded the contracts for both systems again, and the system was converted to state accounts in January 2014. So all the money collected through those two systems was being deposited directly into a state account instead of into the SCI account. During the RFP process, the Dream Tag raffle tickets didn't come up. It wasn't really on our radar. It wasn't until we converted and we're working on reconciliation reports that we realized that included the raffle tickets, and we hadn't really accounted for that. So we set up a specific general ledger code in the state's accounting system for the raffle tickets, held that, and transferred it regularly to the community foundation. And we did that for the duration of 2014. I rationalized that as long as NDOW wasn't conducting the raffle itself, that it should be permissible for us to collect those funds and just turn around and give it to them. I mean, we had it programmed in our system. The statute says we could administer the program, so I personally thought that was an appropriate way to handle it. Well, then the Legislative Council Bureau expressed concerns, and their concerns regarded the no state lottery. I believe it was Senator Smith who asked LCB Legal to look at this new process for depositing raffle ticket funds. The Legislative Council determined that NDOW handling ticket monies was a potential violation of Section 24 of the Nevada Constitution. LCB instructed NDOW to cease collection of ticket sales. We explored technology solutions to this problem to see if there was some way that with one transaction in the application hunt system, a raffle ticket charge could be deposited to the Community Foundation's website and the rest of it deposited to the state's account. There's no technological solution for that. One swipe or one process of the card has to go to one bank account. It's just the way the credit card systems are set up. The state treasurer reaffirmed that we could not return to a private bank account to deposit NDOW fees. All raffle ticket sales ceased on the application hunt system and consumer website in 2015. So the Dream Tag website is now the only purchase portal for raffle tickets.
can still buy a resource enhancement stamp. That is public money that goes to us by law anyway. To try to compensate, a lot, as Donald showed, a large portion of these sales have been through the application hunt system, so we expected it would negatively impact ticket sales. So we really increased marketing efforts this last year to minimize loss in raffle ticket sales. We redesigned the application hunt system to highlight the resource enhancement stamp and to try to drive consumers to the Dream Tag website after their transaction in the application hunt system. We intend to continue to look at system design and marketing efforts to continue to refine in the future to further drive NDOW customers to the Dream Tag website. And that's the essence of the issues that we faced in the last year, an overview of the program. I'll be happy to answer any questions, or we can just let Don go into his numbers.
Questions on the overview portion before we get into the presentation? Commissioner Johnston?
I heard a lot about various treasurer taking issues and then LCB taking it. Through all that rigmarole, did anyone ever identify money not going where it was supposed to ultimately end up? I.e. money that was supposed to end up in the state coffers ended up in the state coffers, and money that was supposed to end up with the community foundation ended up there. Because some of the things I heard made very common sense on what your approach was to an issue. And I hear people saying, well, you can't do that, but what I didn't hear during the presentation was money not going where it wasn't supposed to go. And I just wanted to...
I can say from my perspective, money always went where it was supposed to go. I don't think there was ever a problem with that. It was just really the issue with LCB, with that money passing through our accounts. They felt that was a little too close to being involved in administering the raffle.
Commissioner Bliss?
Yeah, you brought up the point about the department not being able to handle the ticket monies, but you can handle the resource enhancement stamp money. It's state law that it comes straight to the department. But part of the language requires that you have to have a resource enhancement stamp to purchase a ticket. Wouldn't that be part of a conflict, because you got to have that in order to enter to purchase a ticket? Or is that just a gray area or a moot point?
Well, I think it is a gray area. In my personal conversations with LCB, they said what we were doing wasn't touching the raffle ticket money, wasn't necessarily black and white wrong under the law, but it was a little gray, but it was too close to being involved. They didn't have a problem with the resource enhancement stamp coming directly to us. Brenda Erdos, Legislative Counsel, worked very closely on this law herself to make sure that it addressed any concerns they had about the Constitution.
Yeah, I understand that point. It just seems like it's, in order to enter the draw, or to enter the raffle, you have to purchase this stamp, which is the money is controlled by the state, and then it just seems a bit off to me.
Additional questions for Patrick?
I'll just be more blunt.